What's going on, everybody? It is that time again. The Sooners Illustrated Podcast, episode 232 on this Thursday, December 4th, 2025. Josh Callaway, Collin Kennedy here with you on a post-National Signing Day Thursday. 24 guys put ink to paper yesterday for Oklahoma. We're going to wrap it all up. We heard from Brent Venables. We heard from Jim Nagy. What were the big takeaways out of signing day? What are some of the overarching thoughts coming out of this class for 2026 for Oklahoma? We'll break it all down for you on a Thursday. We'll also look ahead to 2027, where Oklahoma continues to stay hot. 3 new commits, so we need to talk about there in 2027. Crazy. That class has just been rolling, especially as of late. We'll get into that as well. Rankings talk a little bit on the back end. We got the penultimate rankings on Tuesday night, selection show Sunday. What are we expecting? What are we watching for? What are the important results that could affect Oklahoma this weekend? We know they're in, but home, road, who they playing? We'll talk into that and kind of sift through that as best we can a little bit on the back end as well. So a loaded Thursday show for you as we navigate into December, now moving in toward the playoff and all that good stuff. And reminders, we get started as always. You can subscribe to Sooners Illustrated at oklahoma.247sports.com. Use the promo code SoonersPod60, all one word, for 60% off a VIP membership to Sooners Illustrated and the entire 24/7 Sports Network. A masterful time to jump in. Also, with the playoff race going on, recruiting is rolling. Hoops looks like might be doing pretty well. We'll get into that more, obviously, next week. But a lot of things to jump in and be a part of the community with us over at Sooners Illustrated. So be sure to sign up and be with us every step of the way. All right, Collin, let's do it. Yesterday was your big day. You were very, very busy. National Signing Day. Tons of content. You were keeping all our VIP members apprised throughout the day. It was a very, very busy day, certainly, obviously, on the recruiting side. 24 guys signed for Oklahoma. Everyone's in. There was no real stragglers. There's a couple that were kind of nothing crazy, though. All 24 guys into the boat. We'll break it down, offense and defense, and kind of what are some of the big things that stand out to you. But just in a general sense, I mean, this class, Oklahoma lands, I think, 15th right in the rankings where they finish. So a very solid class. Didn't end up getting, I think, it's a big class. 24 guys is a pretty good number, but for a while, it was looking like, man, they might make a push toward 30. You had a couple decommits last couple of weeks, but you did add a couple more, some late flips and things like that. They ended up settling at 24 guys. In a general sense, how do you think Oklahoma did? I mean, this is Jim Nagy's first class. Obviously, he came in the spring. They had to battle the negative recruiting all summer. You know, they talked about that a little bit yesterday. Both guys did, especially Jim Nagy. Really had some interesting comments about it. Coming off the 6 and 7 season, much easier this time around. They're off to a great start in 27, which we'll get into more later. But for you, I mean, this 26 class, now that 24 guys are signed, what are some thoughts, man? How do you kind of size up this group for Oklahoma and for Brent Venables here in 2026?
I think there are 3 primary layers that you really have to consider when you're evaluating this group. And it's a group that I really like, especially because, again, I mean, I do this for a living. Signing day is always when I really get to nerd out about player evaluation and roster building. And for me, again, 3 things. Number one, I think you have to account for exactly what you mentioned and what they talked about during the signing day presser, the negative recruiting aspect. Oklahoma was forced to navigate most of the 2026 recruiting cycle with the storyline surrounding Brent Venables' future and the staff's future floating out there. And that was a very real hurdle Oklahoma had to jump over when you're navigating the spring, summer OV season, the back end of the summer when decisions are happening. A lot of these guys, these prospects, I wrote it on our site, a lot of the guys that Oklahoma was able to get committed, those guys pledged based on faith, right? Faith in Venables, faith in Oklahoma's program, and faith in the direction the Sooners were headed in the SEC. That obviously has paid off. But then number 2, I think you have to account for the fact that this is kind of, in a way, what you talked about, the first recruiting class that the coaching staff and the front office worked together on. And that dynamic, I don't think that it's one where, there was a give and take. I don't think that. I think for me, it was about balancing, okay, who does the scouting staff evaluate and really like as potential options that are maybe under the radar versus who does the coaching staff see as prospects or recruits that, let's just be honest, they had recruited well before the scouting staff stepped in. They knew, they liked, and they believed in to potentially provide an impact early and often in Oklahoma. That's a tricky balance to strike, which brings me to number 3. And this is the one that I think that people just aren't talking about. But I've said it here on this show. I mean, again, I take a lot of pride in being someone who is evaluating recruiting classes well ahead of their time. There are videos of me talking about how good 2027 is going to be years ago, and I still believe in that. I think the layer to this that people aren't talking about enough is, number 1, 2026 is not the overall cycle, the caliber of what I believe 2025 to be and what 2027 will be. Especially in the region. Again, we've talked about this in the past. A lot of us who are out there on the recruiting trail in these high schools, watching the tape and evaluating classes next to each other, a lot of us were going, man, 2026 is good. You always have your OKGs, our kind of guys in every class.
Yeah.
But compared to 25, and especially compared to 27, it was very evident that 26 was going to be one that programs were going to have to navigate effectively in order to find the prospects they really believed in. Because I think that you take a 27 or a 25 and put them in this 26 cycle, they are potentially much higher up in the rankings than arguably where they were in other classes that had a lot more depth to them, if this makes sense. And then with that, Oklahoma fans, I know that OU fans are very frustrated about the number 16 overall rank right now. They started at 15. Obviously, some of the activity that took place and continues to take place, because I think this is another thing too to stress. Like, we're still in the early signing period. There will be more movement today. There will be more movement Friday. I'm going to be keeping the live updates tracker going on Sooners Illustrated. People are frustrated about the number 16 overall ranking. But when you look at a cycle that kind of tricky to navigate in the region and then nationally, but on top of this, this is my number 1 point. Oklahoma, working through all the stuff I just talked about, is also working through a very young and deep roster. Like, these recruits know that. They're not dumb. They see multiple true freshmen or a redshirt freshman starting on the offensive line. They see the amount of depth on the defensive line. They see the potential for several returning starters or key rotational pieces to come back. That's another thing you have to account for, especially when there are agents, some qualified, some not so qualified, constantly in their ear about what their future could look like and their earnings, things of that nature. So OU has a very young roster with a number of guys likely coming back. It was a cycle that, in my opinion, was really all about everything taken into consideration, supplementing your roster long-term, addressing your needs, finding guys that you like, who you can develop in someone would call a down cycle that you believe in, and you could get some potential solid return on investment. I think that's what Oklahoma did. I kind of think that, all things considered, OU nailed this cycle. And above all else, the last thing I'll say, for them to navigate it this effectively with all that taken into account, and to get your 2 kingpins, your crown jewels, in Bo Bentley and Jake Kroll, it's hard for me to ask much more of them. I really like this class we're getting ready to talk about.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting group for me, because there's not, we've talked about it kind of throughout the process. There's not like the big, obvious, flashy 5-star players on here. There's not a Michael Fasusi, which even the most casual fan that doesn't keep up the recruiting knows, right? They don't have that guy. I mean, I'm sure a lot of OU fans know Bo Bentley just because he's the quarterback, but even Bo Bentley, he's not like even Jackson Arnold was, right? I mean, that Gatorade Player of the Year, he's a really highly touted quarterback prospect, but he's not like one of those, certainly not like what we had with Caleb Williams, or like going back to that sort of regime, right? He's not that level of prospect on a national level. He could easily be better than all those guys, obviously, but you get what I'm saying. And then, there's no PJ Adebawore or Peyton Bowen, or like there's no those obvious 5 stars though that really grab the attention again of the people who are at least casually keeping up with it. But there's a lot of really solid football players, and it feels like, I mean, with the way this staff has proven that they can develop guys, there's a number of dudes who I feel like have star potential in due time, right? I mean, you look at the current team. I mean, guys like Taylor Wine, or like you go down, especially on defense. So many of those guys who are playing big time roles were not super. I mean, great, like Grayson Halton. Like these are not guys that were like can't miss future NFL star recruits. They were highly touted recruits, good players. If you're going to Oklahoma, you're going to be a good recruit, right? It's not like they're taking players who aren't any good in high school football or anything to go play at Oklahoma. But they've turned a lot of these guys into studs. And I think there's a lot of that in this class, a lot of potential for that. And it's going to be interesting because this is the first class with Jim Nagy and that front office staff. How well do they identify guys? Jim talked about that yesterday. It was very interesting when he kind of was talking about the process of working with Venables and the coaching staff. Basically, like, they don't take any players that they don't agree on. Sometimes they like a guy and the front office staff is like, eh. Sometimes the front office finds a guy and they're like, we like this guy. And then Venables and staff are like, that's not our type of dude. They just move on. All these guys are guys that they have identified and found together that they like. And so it's just the first class. We're not going to know for a couple of years, obviously, but it's the first class where to see just kind of how the operation worked, for lack of a better term, in this cycle. So it's very, very interesting. And there's a lot of players that are really exciting, really all across the board, and really offensively in particular, honestly. And we'll talk about that more in a second. But any other overarching thoughts before we start to break down specifics?
No, I'm excited to talk about this class. There are guys that I have been following for a while that, OKGs, MKGs, my kind of guys. Mm-hmm. And I will say this too, like, that's the thing. We're not going to know for a few years. I think there are a lot of just not only really solid football players who have the chance to develop into future high-level contributors. The other thing I would say here on the back end is for Oklahoma to identify a number of prospects with a very solid competitive floor and a potential high ceiling from a developmental standpoint. I would also say this. I thought that they did a great job, again, in what some would call a down cycle, of finding talented recruits who, like, I think that's another thing. Not a whole lot of drama. Like,
no, you're right.
I firmly believe that a way that you need to judge a recruiting class is how confident are you that a lot of these personalities, these characters fit, and they have the chance to stick in your program walls long term.
Yeah.
I think that is up and down this list of recruits. And so it's one thing to get them. It's another thing about your odds to retain them. That is another layer to this class. So I think these are several guys who are planning to not just sign, they're signing and sticking around with the Sooners.
No doubt. It's going to be fun to see how these guys develop. I assume a number of these guys will enroll early. So that's become more and more the norm. So we're going to look at a lot of them coming up in the spring, obviously. Let's talk about the offense specifically first. So we talked about it. You had line, you got Bo Bentley. He's your quarterback. That's where you kind of start. You get two running backs, to Zephan Walker, and then obviously Jonathan Hatton, who they flipped from Texas A&M, who flipped from OU before that. Obviously, we talked about him. He was originally the first guy. Obviously, we've kind of talked about that and what kind of player we think he is. You got 4 receivers: Odom, Okafulaweze, Jaden Petit, who did sign. He was the last one to sign. They got him in. Jasir Rogers flips over from Penn State. The 2 tight ends, Ryder Mix and Tyler Ruxer. And then 2 offensive linemen, Noah Best and Deacon Schmidt. Offensively, what do you think? It really feels like, honestly, which is kind of crazy. Just calling it like it is, with the way that the defense is playing. And there's a lot of really good defensive players here too. We'll get to that in a minute. But offensively, it might be stronger in this class. I mean, it's a really nice offensive group of players. And part of it is just the fact the offense is kind of still finding its way right now. But I think clearly there are more immediate impact guys on offense than defense in this class. Again, a big part of that is the defense doesn't need as much help as the offense needs. So don't get me wrong. I acknowledge that. But there's a lot to be excited about here offensively with what they did in this class. Where are you kind of at? What stands out to you when you kind of look at these positions and how Oklahoma did and what they added?
Let's start with the quarterback quickly.
Yeah.
I think that, and I'm finishing up a story about this that will go out today. you always look at every cycle and you identify what is the number one need of every class. Last year, what was it? Offensive line. How often did we say the Sooners have got to land a standout offensive line haul? 2026 for me, everything we just talked about, it was all about finding your guy at quarterback. You had to get the quarterback right. Naturally, the progression of that room and things of that nature.
Sure.
But on top of that, bringing in a new offensive coordinator and some new offensive staff members, a new system, finding the prospect that this program believed in to operate within that system, and that was paramount. And I think that we cannot, skip past the fact that this Oklahoma program, off a 6-7 season last year, they offered this individual late. Bo Bentley, I mean, he grew up an Oklahoma fan. Several of his family members are huge OU fans. He had always dreamed of playing at Oklahoma, but he wanted the offer. It didn't come until Ben Arbuckle stepped in and said, I believe in that guy. Because of that delay, other programs were surging. And OU had let's just call it what it is, an uphill battle to get the signal caller. It took a risk on. I mean, they didn't need to take that risk and go after him, and they did. And at the end of it all, Bo committed to them. He believed in them at a time where the negative recruiting aspect was very real. He had major options on the table, LSU and Georgia. And I think that it's very cool. Obviously, we know the caliber of player Bo Bentley is, right?
Sure.
I think it is very cool to see somebody who is realizing a childhood dream also be rewarded for the work he put in and then the faith that he placed in the program he has always wanted to play at. And so you can tell, I mean, the way that Brent and Jim talked about Bo, that this meant a lot to them, and it should. And I know, obviously, having known Bo the way that I do, I know it means a lot to him and his family as well. So that's where you go. And I think one of the biggest things about this class is they got their guy. They got the quarterback. He wants to be there. He has wanted to be there for a long time. And now, like, everything played out to where both parties are rewarded.
Yeah. And it was, hearing from Brent and Jim Nagy both talking about, the fact that Bo, and we talked about throughout the season, basically at all the home games, and he felt like he was part of the team already in a lot of ways this past season, being around every single weekend and helping put this class together. And, we talked about it. Was it the Auburn game where his game got moved to Saturday morning and he still found a way to make it to Norman for a 2:30 game? Like, that was kind of the commitment that he showed. And he really wants to be at OU, obviously. You talk about his family, like Brent Venables said yesterday, his family are Sooners too, which is cool. And what do you think of Brent also invoking the name Sam Bradford when making a comparison from a personality standpoint? I mean, that's high praise. I mean, Sam.
Yeah. Can I stress real quick before everyone goes crazy? Like, he wasn't saying Bo Bentley is the next Sam Bradford.
He said he was personality. Yeah.
Yes. But I don't want people out there to be like, oh, he said Sam Bradford. So
that's a name that, he says, and you're going to be like, oh, I mean, it certainly caught my eye, or ear, I should say. So this is like you said, this is their guy. This is a guy that it feels like he's an Arbuckle guy. It feels like he's an OU guy. It feels like he's a perfect fit for OU culturally. And obviously he's a good football player, and he's from down the road. Right. So, I mean, hopefully it works out from a play standpoint, because that's what it all boils down to at the end of the day. But everything else feels like it's right in line with what they need and what they were looking for. So you like that. It excites you.
Speaking of needs, we'll talk about the offensive skill guys here. I'm not going to go through every player here on the show, but I think that's where you go with the skill guys. They got guys who have a chance to come in and provide an impact at positions of need going into next year. And
for sure,
it obviously kind of starts with the two at the top, Jonathan Hatton Jr. and Jaden Petit. First of all, I mean, what a win for them to finally get the Jaden Petit flip pulled off. Yeah. We didn't talk about this process whenever it happened because it was literally Thanksgiving Day, but I know that OU was getting frustrated. They were getting antsy. When are we going to get a response from this guy? They finally did. Jaden Petit gives them a lot to be thankful for because, number one, I mean, I was talking about it with one of our guys on the national scouting team. This is a top 100 player, number 93 in the country. What he has done over the last few seasons, especially this year, at 6'4", and I'm told well above 200 pounds, this is a day one collegiate body type and playmaking ability at wide receiver. And Petit too he is a overly nice kid. We talked about it back then. I think that because he is just such a character fit for a place like Oklahoma, he was having a hard time telling somebody no. He finally said yes to Oklahoma, and like this was their guy at receiver. We're going to talk about Bo. We're going to talk about Kroll. This is, I would argue, for them like a crown jewel in Jay Petit. And I think that we knew they needed some playmaking ability out wide. Petit gives them that. This was kind of their guy at receiver. They get him. And then Jonathan Hatton Jr. Don't need to recount the whole story. First ever 2026 to commit, goes away because of what we were talking about, some of the questions about the program's future. He comes back to Oklahoma. I don't think it's any secret, if you've kept up with the show, like Jonathan Hatton Jr. is one of my favorite players in the entire 2026 cycle. Right. This is an MKG for me, my kind of guy, top 5 running back in the country. Yeah, he says he's now up to 6'1" and 220 plus pounds. And he runs 10.6 in the 100-meter. He's like a motorcade. I mean, this dude gets downhill, head of steam, size, speed, and when you're watching tape or whatever, you usually have that trait that you're drawn to with every position or player. I am a big fan of running backs who have little wasted movement. I want guys that get the ball and want every single yard possible as quick and as violently as humanly possible. That's Jonathan Hatton Jr. I think this guy gives you the ability to plug him in right away because he's big, he's strong, he's fast, and because of all that combined, he is a chore to tackle. And so when Petit and Hatton Jr., they got a guy at running back and receiver who should likely be able to step in next season and contribute for them. I love the other receivers. Xavier Okafuluweze, I love the shot taken here. Guy that's still extremely new to the sport, but every trait you can imagine, multi-sport background, things of that nature. Odom, they hold on. Jasir Rogers, high competitive floor. DeZephan Walker, another sneaky find. And then on the tail end here, I think that, and this is where I'll kick it to you, I am fascinated by this tight end haul.
Yeah.
Fascinated by the tight end haul because I think they got 2 complementary skill sets. Tyler Ruxer, Jim Nagy talked about it as a scouting and player eval nerd. I loved it. They talked about how they were just skimming track times, and Tyler Ruxer caught their attention. If you're running through track times and you see a tight end running, I believe he said 11 flat in the 100, like I'm in. Ruxer at like 6'4", 205, 210 pounds can do a lot for you. He's going to probably need a little bit of time because of, the level of competition he's coming from. But again, just a rare athlete and body type and someone who can do a lot. And then you got Ryder Mix, who is kind of always sneakily been like a subtle favorite of mine. Will block his butt off in the run game. George Stoy asked Brent, how do you find the next gritty players? I think Ryder Mix is just textbook grit, right? Sure. Comes from an Oklahoma family. Dad played at OU for the baseball team. And the only thing I would say quickly here is, like, if OU fans need more validation about why they should really like Ryder Mix, there is a video going around of Jeff Rayburn, Frisco Lone Stars head coach, who is an OU grad, talking about Ryder Mix at Lone Star signing day ceremony the other day. Coach Rayburn, who I know well, like a genuine guy, he was having a hard time finishing sentences. He was so emotional about who Ryder Mix is, what Ryder Mix has been through, and what he does for his teammates and the community. Ryder Mix is an Oklahoma guy. And everything else, the 2 tight ends they get too with these receivers and running backs, it's a really quality haul.
Yeah, just it seems like opportunities abound here for all these guys. I mean, you look at, when I talk about guys who can maybe help OU right away, these are the positions that come to mind. Certainly Jonathan Hatton, who we've talked about. Jade Petit, I mean, like you said, 6'3", 6'4", 220-ish, like that. Yes, sign up for that. And I like the other receivers too. I mean, Jasir Rogers, I've become a big fan of. Odom, we've talked about a lot. He's been in the boat for a long time. At one point we thought package deal with O'Neal. He ends up sticking all that. And like I said, Okafuluweze, in-state guy, the one in-state guy in this class. Hasn't played a lot of football, a lot of upside there. Really, rangy, 6'4" is what he's listed at. Ruxer, by the way, I don't know what you want to do with it, but the OU release has him at 225, at 6'4", 225. So I'm in there too. Like, I think there's opportunities all over for all these guys to help OU immediately next year, because those are the positions, and we'll also get into portal talk when we get closer, when we get into January. But those are the positions you imagine Oklahoma's going to attack in the portal. But that doesn't mean there's not going to still be opportunities for these guys. I think that there definitely will be. So I really like, especially that receiver group, the running back duo, the tight end duo as well. But there's a lot to be excited about at these positions. And again, there's opportunities there. I think that some of these dudes could jump in and help you right away next year at all these spots. So a lot to be excited about there.
Then you go to the offensive line. I thought that a statement that flew under the radar that was very profound from Jim Nagy is they're not taking offensive linemen who can only play one position. You have to be able, I talk about it, the 1.5 scholarship rule. You want a guy that can play the position he's recruited to and maybe play another if you need him to. That's what they got with these two guys on the offensive line. You got Noah Best, who I think is going to be able to play all three interior positions. I know that Noah Best was someone that our team at 24/7 really ended up liking down the stretch, and I thought he maybe had an argument to cross that 4-star threshold. And then you got Deacon Schmidt, who I think has a chance to be just a bully, the physical floor of being an offensive lineman in the SEC, coming from Colorado, has a great offensive line trainer, has a great mentality to himself. I think he's going to be able to play right tackle. I think he's going to be able to play guard on either side. I think that he is, we've talked about in the past, a complementary piece. And I think, again, when you're looking at these two offensive linemen, I know that they wanted to sign more. I know OU fans wanted more offensive linemen. Mm-hmm. This is one specifically where Oklahoma had to navigate the entire cycle with people saying, you don't want to go there if you're an offensive lineman. They already have 3 guys. They're going to be there for the next several years. That's tough to combat, especially at a premium position like offensive line. I think that they got 2 dudes who, if you only get 2, you want guys that can kind of be like a 1.5. So in a way, they got 3 with Schmidt and Best.
Yeah, like you said, I mean, would you like 1 or 2 more? Sure. Jim Nagy said as much, that they were hoping to maybe get another guy or 2. But I like the 2 you have. And then, like you said, I mean, you got 3 freshmen starting right now. And in 2027, you've got 3 committed already, including 2 5-stars in Penny and Cooper Hackett. So, not a big deal, I guess, is what I'm getting at. I'm not losing sleep if I'm an Oklahoma fan over that. Again, that's what most people look at the class. That seems to be one of the more common comments I've seen from OU fans is only 2 O-linemen. It's like, man, you got a lot of young guys there now. Your entire offensive line is going to be back next year with the exception of Fabechi Wiwu. And again, in 2027, you have 3 guys already committed right now, and there's still a year to go. I mean, you might add another guy or 2 there, and 2 of them are 5-stars. So I wouldn't fret about that. And like you said, the 2 guys are good, Best and Deacon Schmidt, obviously. And I noticed that too, where Jim pretty much said straight up, like, you have to be able to play multiple spots, because if you can't, we're going to get into a pickle, and we don't want that. So that's good to hear. I think that's an exciting thing to hear if you're an OU fan. More flexibility, because that flexibility has helped them a lot this year. Guys kicking around. We just had Fabechi Wiwu moving to center, and Foje's been going outside, and now he kicked inside. Like, that has helped them this year. And so, yeah, you need more of that for sure. Mm-hmm. Anything else on offense? It's a good group.
Let's talk some defense.
Good. Let's go to the defensive side. Obviously, you would think anyone would want to play defense for this team right now, with where it's going and this staff, and it's a machine. Obviously, the headliner, Jake Crail, who we talked about, was kind of the golden goose of this thing, along with Bo Bentley. You put him with Matthew Nelson and Daniel Norman. Really, really exciting edge group there. D tackles, you got James Tank Carrington. They flipped from Florida State. Also, Brian Harris. Then you have the linebackers. They end up actually signing 4 guys who go in as a linebacker, or at least on the official signing. We'll see what they end up doing down the road. But you have Bathurst, Jacob Curry, who we talked about, Bo Jandro, and then Christian Moore, who was the last one into the boat. What was that, Monday, I think? And then in the secondary, Derek Johnson at corner, and then the other Jandro, Nico, at safety. I think I got everyone there. Defensively, what do you think? I mean, this is, we talk about how good this defense is. You're not going to lose a lot off it. So it's not to say there's not good players here, because there's a lot of good players here, but I don't know how much of these guys are going to help you right away, just because you don't need them to help you right away. I'm sure a couple of these guys will jump up like Cortland Guillory is doing this year, or whatever. Like, that'll probably happen. But where do you guys go on defense? I mean, there's a lot of talented players here, obviously, and a lot to be excited about. A lot more kind of Venables-y guys, it feels like, over here.
I think that's where you have to start. So let's go to the defensive line. We talked about how Bo Bentley was the crown jewel of the offensive side because he was Ben Arbuckle's guy. And you wanted to go get your new offensive coordinator's top target at the number one most valuable position in the sport. What Bo Bentley is to Ben Arbuckle, Jake Kroll is to Brent Venables. I don't think that's any secret. I think it got out that Brent had Jake Kroll as his guy in this cycle. And this is another one, too, that Bo committed to Oklahoma before the season was played. They got their offensive crown jewel. For OU to go out and get the head coach's top target on the defensive side.
Yeah.
To get that guy before the season started and to hold on to him throughout the cycle here in the fall, huge. And Jake Kroll just, I mean, he's about as polished of a pass rusher there is in this year's class.
Yeah. He really good.
They talked about it a little bit. The get off the line of scrimmage, a pretty complete pass rush bag already as a younger prospect. And I've talked about this too. Jake Kroll is one of, if not the only recruit I've seen who is like training his peers as a coach. One thing we talk about in the recruiting sphere a lot is like, you should value the guys that other recruits are drawn to, right? You should always take note of which recruits drop their cool and are glued to the actions of other players. That's who Jake Kroll is. Just like he has a chance to be truly like the perfect fit for them defensively. And then,
doesn't he just feel like a guy that you could have seen just absolutely dominating at Clemson in those national championships? Like, he feels like that type of guy. Perfect fit. Perfect fit.
I mean, he has a chance to kind of be the next Taylor Wine or R. Mason Thomas, like the defensive end edge rusher that this staff fell in love with. And so,
that's the ceiling for sure. Yeah.
And that's the other thing too, is Kroll is like, he's as outspoken and outgoing of a personality as there is. Very well-spoken, very thought out, very energetic, just a perfect fit. And then they worked off of that. They found, again, a number of recruits on the defensive line that they identified as long-term developmental prospects along the line of scrimmage. I think the defensive tackles are really intriguing for me. You know, James Carrington started out very highly ranked, multi-time transfer, dealt with injuries, underwent a little bit of a body transformation as well. He kind of, over the course of his high school career, had a lot going on. And so now Oklahoma brings him in. Todd Bates, one of the best developers of defensive tackle talent. I'm curious to see what they can do with Carrington. Brian Harris, for me, another guy that just seems like an Oklahoma guy, very outgoing personality, strong presence, and then at the same time, like a guy out of the state of Florida that has a lot of the baseline traits you would be looking for as an interior player.
He seems very Todd Batesy.
Yes.
Like, he seems like a Todd Bates guy.
I wouldn't be surprised if you injected truth serum into Brent Venables and Venables said, Jake Kroll was my guy. If you put Todd Bates truth serum in, he'd probably be like, Brian Harris is kind of like my dude. Because I think that they could probably swap some pretty good poetry over the years, if you will. And I'm excited to see what they can do with those two on a defensive tackle. The edge group, man, obviously Kroll, but like Matthew Nelson, they put their chips on, right? They said before a lot of others, this is someone that we're going to believe in long term. And so Nelson comes in 89 3-star, which again means someone with just a ton of traits and potential, could have been a 4-star type of guy. And then Daniel Norman is arguably the guy for me that I am most intrigued by, because I think there's a DPR floor there, designated pass rusher. He has excellent bend, ankle, and hip flexibility. He's obviously a little bit more undersized at like 6'3" to 6'4", 205 pounds, but screams off the edge and has
Mhm.
the ability to get to the quarterback as well as anyone. And so they saw someone out of, hey, the storied St. Thomas Aquinas that has the ability to make someone's life a living hell on third down. So I'm very intrigued by this defensive line group in general. And again, it's a lot of guys that they kind of felt comfortable with bringing in and saying, this is who we believe in.
For sure. No, for sure. I mean, and you talk about how good the defensive line group is now, and it just seems like you're just adding to it. Like you said, Crail kind of the headliner there, but you feel really good about everywhere. And that edge rush trio. I mean, obviously Crail's going to be the headliner for obvious reasons, but you loop in Norman and Nelson, it's exciting. It is. Miguel
Yeah.
Chavis, I mean, he's done a phenomenal job. Like we've talked about that. Both recruiting, developing guys, just creating stars at that position. And
Mhm.
so you feel really good about what they added. What about linebacker for you?
Yeah.
You may want to go there next. Four guys. We've talked about it the last year or two. Like they haven't signed that many linebackers the last couple of years, which might be kind of surprising considering that it's Venable's baby of a position. But like you have some that we haven't really seen a whole lot of yet. Your Marcus James, who's a freshman now, who looks great in the uniform, but we haven't really seen him play. James Nesta. Like there's guys who are kind of waiting in the wings. But for the most part, it's been kind of like the same dudes for a while. And eventually those guys are going to be gone. Kip
Yeah.
Lewis, Cole McKenzie, who both could be back next year. But you're kind of wondering, like, who's going to be that next group. They signed 4 linebackers yesterday. What do you think of what they did there? What stands out to you about that group?
Look, speaking of taking shots, like this was kind of the position, in my opinion, Oklahoma said, we're going to believe in our eval of the position we know
Sure.
best. We talk about it a lot. This Sooner staff is very linebacker centric. They had only signed a couple over the last few years, and it really felt like this was the cycle. They said, you know what? Enough is enough. We believe in our ability to evaluate the position. Let's just go get a ton of bodies who we like and supplement that roster long term, even if some of our guys currently on the roster come back. Dane Bathurst is kind of who I want to start with. A late ad for them, Duke
Right.
commit. They end up taking the shot with a few others. And this is, for me, I have already kind of started to put Dane in the camp of like Hatton and Bo, like the OKG's my kind of guys. I have a lot of belief in Dane Bathurst, man. Son of a Navy SEAL. Both mom and dad were collegiate swimmers in the Big Ten at Minnesota. His sister is another collegiate swimmer. I believe she won the ACC championship in the 800 or something like that. Like comes from a disciplined, athletic, multi-sport family that you can see it. The genetics play out on the field.
Sure.
Dane at 6'3", 6'4", like just a hard-nosed, high motor, aggressive football player. And he kind of feels like someone Venables could turn into just a force at inside linebacker, right? And this is another thing too. He went through most of this cycle as an edge recruit. Most programs were evaluating him as a defensive end. Oklahoma was kind of the one that said, no. Like, we like you as one of our guys at inside backer. So I give them a ton of credit for doing that. They've done that in the past with like a Michael Boganowski, who was primarily recruited as a linebacker. They said, no, you're safety.
Sure.
I really am always fascinated by when they do that kind of stuff. Christian Moore, front office said, we like this guy a lot. Bo Jandro, I've said this in the past. I've been told by a number of collegiate staffs across the country, they think Bo Jandro is a stud. So Oklahoma gets a guy that I would assume they saw similar stuff in. And
Sure.
Yeah, man, I'm very interested to see what they can accomplish. You got Jacob Curry, another guy that I've heard from folks in the Southeast that they have a lot of belief in.
Yeah.
I'm very intrigued by this backer haul because, again, it's just a lot of guys that they clearly said, we're going to stockpile our room, the room we know most, with a lot of guys that we want to bet on. And I like these bets.
What of the group cheetah potentials? I mean, Curry seems like the obvious one there. Was he the one that you kind of earmarked as he's got some cheetah possibilities with him, kind of like what we're seeing right now with Kendall Daniels and Samuel Masigo a little bit?
I think you go Curry. So we'll cross the bridge to safety quickly. I think Curry has a chance to play cheetah. I think that
Yeah.
Nico Jandro has a chance to play some cheetah. And I think Markel Ford, especially on like a third down,
Yeah.
has a chance to play some cheetah too. Curry is just like a fly around type of guy. Jandro, hard nosed. I could see him playing kind of that slot backer role and providing you a lot of violence and run support. And then Markel Ford, I've known Markel for years. Markel was, for a majority of his high school career, primarily just a true safety. This past season, they talked about it. He played corner basically for the first time in his high school career. And I thought showcased some pretty impressive man coverage skills. Ford, to me, too, just the natural violence. I believe Venable's exact words were, he'll rip your soul out.
Yeah.
I have seen that firsthand watching as many Markel Ford games as I have. Ford, to me, would be someone fascinating to play on third down in the slot because of his willingness to be aggressive in both run support and playing against screens, but then also what he started to show in the back end of his high school career as a man coverage defender. That core. And that was the other thing, too. Versatility was so big with this class. You could tell they got a lot of that with like these mid-skill guys, the backers and safeties.
For sure. Yeah, I failed to mention Ford earlier. So they get three guys in the secondary with Ford at safety and then Nico Jandro. I have like a jet going over my house right now. I don't know if you can hear that or not. Nico Jandro, and then Derek Johnson is the lone cornerback
yes,
in the class. Are you on paper, it seems kind of like the offensive line, right? I mean, you have a lot of young corners, and you've talked about it before, what they kind of have coming in 27. They have two guys committed now, and you're probably going to get at least a couple more, it sounds like, probably in 2027. Is that just the reality of it? Like, they didn't add a lot more corners because they don't really need to, and they have more coming. And you get one that you obviously you like in Derek Johnson and these two safeties. Are you surprised? What do you make of the secondary haul, and are you surprised there wasn't more, or does it make sense to you, or where you kind of fall on that? Because only one corner, two safeties, not a ton of just pure numbers in the secondary in this class.
I think it makes a ton of sense because you got to remember too, they've got Cortland Guillory, Eli Bowen isn't going anywhere,
Jacoby Johnson,
like they've got some Devin Jordan, Jeremiah Newcomb hanging around as well.
Tristan Haynes hasn't played yet.
Tristan Haynes. And then you look at the safeties, like that trio we've been talking about for 2 years now ain't going anywhere either.
Sure.
And all three of Jaden Hardy
next year, presumably.
Yep, Michael Boganowski, Reggie Powers, they're playing now. They're going to be arguably faces of this defense moving forward. This one for me, like secondary wise, again, you are combating the depth, the potential returnees. You also had to find guys again that they it's no secret, they covet versatility. They want chess pieces in the back end. They found those skill sets. And then the guy that I'll quickly close out with, I think Derek Johnson, we'll do our signing day superlatives probably in February when the class is pretty much finalized. I think Derek Johnson is the most under the radar signee as a 4-star recruit that I can remember at a premium position. Like, he jumped into the number 204 overall spot in the top 247 in 2026.
Yeah.
This is the son of a former all Pac-12 or whatever it was. His dad, Derek Johnson Sr., was a dominant corner at Washington. Derek Johnson Sr. played a number of years in the NFL, so he comes from NFL bloodlines. Derek Johnson runs track and field. He checks that box from a multi-sport and verified track standpoint. I believe he has a 95 speed score for us in our database stuff. Like, and people will look at it too. I believe he ran an 11:12 in the 100. He ran an 11:12 with an injury. Like, he's running track with an injury all spring.
Right.
So he's tough. He has the NFL background. He's shown the ability to not only multi-sport, played both receiver and defensive back in high school. I like Derek Johnson a lot. I think that they not only combated the cornerback depth that's young in Norman. I didn't necessarily love the cornerback cycle in 26.
Sure.
And especially regionally, it was kind of like, I remember talking with some folks behind the scenes. It's like, man, who are they going to go get? Who makes a lot of sense to, especially because at corner, you're investing at that position. That is right up there with offensive line and quarterback. And I really like Derek Johnson. I thought that this was a pretty solid get for them. And that was evidenced by his late rise in the rankings as well.
No doubt. Good group. Lots of exciting. I mean, it's a machine. You're hoping at this point you kind of have the machine rolling on defense, especially. Like you're just going to keep adding guys, and a lot of this defense is going to be back next year. And you add more of these young dudes, you just kind of keep it rolling. I will also add to, want to make sure don't overlook Trace Rudd, kicker, also signed.
My guy.
It was kind of funny hearing Brent talk about Trace Rudd and basically kind of joked he shares a lot of the characteristics of our current kicker, is how he put it, Tate Sendell, obviously, which, we're getting to know Tate a little bit this year. It's clear, a lot of confidence, which you kind of have to have at that position. And Tate's obviously been unbelievable this year. I mean, he's a huge part of why OU's 10-2. They don't win those road games without Tate, especially in Knoxville. Like, he's been massive. And so, if Trace Rudd can be that next guy for you after Tate, who does have another year, but if he can be that next guy for you, that's huge. That's massive. That shouldn't go overlooked. So Trace Rudd, also want to make sure don't overlook that they got a good kicker in the
class. Cole's kicking 5-star, and also Trace Rudd and family supporters of the Sooners Illustrated podcast show. Shout out to my guy Trace. I like him a lot. I'm excited to see what he can do in Norman too.
No doubt. So, and if Tate does move on, which I don't think he will, I'd assume he'll be back. But if he does, I mean, this could be your guy next year. I mean, that's possible. I mean, it'll be a competition, right? I'll probably open a couple of the guys that they have in-house right now, and maybe you would look to portal a guy. I don't know. But obviously, if it's up to Oklahoma, they'd have Tate Sendell back the year that he's had. But, we'll see. But cool. So it's a fun class. And like Collin said, we'll see quickly. I mean, 24 guys. Do you think there's a chance they add any more before February? I mean, we've almost kind of fallen in because it's just the early signing period. Like, it's just like, okay, class is done. Like you said, technically they could still sign more guys by the time February rolls around.
I don't think so. The only other thing that I will say is I could see them starting to really work through the preferred walk-on scene. So keep an eye out for that.
That makes sense. Well, cool. It's a fun class. And like Collin said, whenever it's official in February, we'll have a little more downtime, obviously, in February after the season, before spring ball starts up. We'll kind of really dive into some more of this a little bit with some of the kind of superlatives and stuff like that. It's usually kind of a fun February show around the second signing day at this point in February. What about 2027, though? Let's get into that a little bit because obviously 2026 is the focus. You just had signing day, but 27 is rolling. They added 3 more guys in the last week. We kind of half referenced it on the instant reaction on Saturday when they added Crew Jones. So he comes in, the 4-star edge from Utah, who we've talked about a few times on the show, or at least a couple times over the last several months, kind of here and there. His name has come up. He comes in on Saturday right after the win. So that was nice for Oklahoma. And they also added 2 more dudes this week that I don't think are super, at least on the OU fan side, super well known. They're not yet rated 24/7 Sports. They will be. Don't worry, people freaking out about that. They will be in due time. Just give it a little bit of time. They're both young still. Trayvon Hall, a wide receiver, and then Keldred Ben, a running back, both jumped in this week as well. So 3 more commits, Collin, in 27. Jim Nagy talked about it yesterday that they really are fired up about the start they're off to in 27, and that there are more expected soon, basically, that just haven't gone public with their commitments yet. But 3 more guys in. Obviously, Crew Jones, the headliner who we've talked about, but then a couple more skill position guys on offense. This class is rolling. I mean, it's still really early. We just, we're about a year until these guys sign, but this class is off to a great start, and 3 more dudes in this week.
No signs of slowing down either. I will talk about that here in a second, but starting with Crew Jones, I think that I maybe had the commit story written and ready since the Auburn game.
Yeah.
There has been buzz about Crew Jones potentially committing to Oklahoma for, I mean, it feels like months at this point. And when you saw him returning for the LSU game, I think everyone kind of knew what was about to go down. Now, I've got a bone to pick with Crew. He committed while we were in the press conferences. So I had
That's
to
right.
scramble while I'm like, I think I was recording Fabechi Wiwu after playing center for the first time ever and panicking to get my commit story out. But, you and I have talked about it, and we've got years to talk about Crew Jones. This was kind of their Jake
Sure.
Kroll, right? This is their Jake Kroll. This is a guy that Brent, that Miguel Chavis, Todd Bates, the front office staff, everyone in-house loved. He's an ideal fit for OU.
Yeah.
He has liked Oklahoma for a long time as well. I know, I constantly got texts throughout the season that he would be decked out in Oklahoma gear. And, I mentioned on the show here too, like we had been told by other staffs across the country, like they were all like, yeah, he's probably going to Oklahoma. So they get their guy N27 in a sense, and a huge win for them. And then quickly here on the back end, the other two they got, I really like these guys, man. I mean,
Yeah.
You hired the scouting staff in front office to take calculated shots before bigger brands leapt in and, prioritize prospects you like. And in Trayvon Hall and Keldrick Ben, man, I turn on the tape and I'm like, woof. Like Trayvon Hall, I wrote it in the story, violent with the ball in his hands, violent running style. And he's a receiver, but when you watch him, he's playing quarterback, running back, slot receiver, outside. I think he's got the ability to play in the return game as well, in my opinion. This is someone who you just find a way to get him the ball. And all of a sudden, it's on, right? And Trayvon Hall to me is, I always like to find, and this trait for me carries to both receiver and then especially running back, whether it's Hall or Keldrick Ben, good players don't go down. Good players don't go down is what we live by. And for Hall and then Keldrick Ben, the forced missed tackle rate, very impressive.
Right.
Another kind of downhill guy, someone who I think is actually pretty effective out of the backfield too as a receiving threat. But I think that Keldrick Ben for me was someone who, you've seen some comparisons, some pretty lofty comparisons in terms of OU running backs of the past that people are reminded of with this guy. Keldrick Ben was one that when I watched him, similar to Hatton in a sense, just gets north and south, and it's hard to bring him down. And he's building up a head of steam in a hurry. 2 really quality gets to go along with the highly ranked recruit that is Crew Jones. Before we move on, I said it. Nagy hinted at it. I don't think they're done anytime soon either.
Sure.
This weekend, 4-star defensive tackle Elijah Harmon is going to make his decision on December 7th. I like Oklahoma there going into the final call. I think OU nailed it again with what was his 3rd visit in Norman this season. OU in a really good spot there. Juju Johnson, we talked about him going into the LSU game, canceled his December 1st decision date. Obviously still out there. I still really like Oklahoma. There are more out there, certainly, that we'll talk about sometime soon, but they got these guys in, and I think that there are potentially more on the way, like Nagy said. They're rolling right now in 27.
Yeah, certainly all the makings of a potential, top 5-ish class. I mean, there's a long way to go, but that's kind of what's on the table certainly right now for Oklahoma in 27. I continue to be impressed to start offensively without a quarterback. I mean, obviously they're chasing some quarterbacks, but usually that's kind of what gets the ball rolling. You got 2 receivers, 3 offensive linemen, 2 of them are 5 stars, 2 running backs now. I mean, it's a good group offensively in particular. And again, you feel like if you can get the quarterback in place, which, we've talked about a couple names there, then you really feel like you've got quite the crop in 27, which, again, it's not like these guys. I mean, you have Bo Bentley in 26. Like, it's not like there's a lot to feel good about the position, but usually the kind of quarterback is what kind of sets it all in motion. And they're doing that without that right now. So, 27 class looks great. Super early, but looks great as of right now for sure. Okay, so we do a little ranking talk on the back end before we get out of here. Number 8, again, in the final ranking, or the second to last ranking, is the penultimate on Tuesday night, which is good. Number 8 means they're in. There was a little bit of mild concern. There was so much shenanigans coming out of the game on Saturday where just a bunch of talking heads trying to do this thing where, like, OU's offense isn't any good. They shouldn't be in the playoff, which is just one of the dumbest things ever, really. I mean, I don't know if anyone has as good of a resume as Oklahoma, but yeah, because the offense isn't lighting it up. Let's leave them out. It's ridiculous, but not an issue. They're in. At number 8, they are a stone cold lock. There's no world where they tumble out, which is, again, we knew this on Saturday, but good to see it officially on Tuesday. Quite the accomplishment to be in the playoff is exciting. We'll be dialed in on Sunday. The selection show is 11 a.m. Sunday morning. We're going to have an instant reaction show, the two of us and Tom Green, on Sunday, kind of just reacting to the draw whenever we get to know it. But Collin, as of right now, I mean, we know they're in, but it is not clear at all who they're going to play or if it'll be at home or not, because you have Alabama 9 and you have BYU 11, and both those teams play in conference championship games this weekend. And you would think if either one of them wins, they're going to jump Oklahoma, which would slide OU down outside of that top 8 and put them on the road. The way I kind of see it, if both lose, OU will be at home against either Alabama or maybe Notre Dame. If one of them if Alabama wins, I think you're probably going to College Station. If BYU wins, probably the same thing, probably going to College Station. If they both win, that's where it gets really weird, because I don't know what's going to happen. That's where you start to bring in maybe an Ole Miss gets back in the conversation, maybe an Oregon gets back in the conversation, maybe even Provo gets into the conversation. I don't know, but Oklahoma in good shape. We'll see what happens this weekend, but home game or not, I mean, if you're an OU fan, you're rooting for Georgia, you're rooting for Texas Tech, because if those two teams win, you're going to be at home. If that's what you want above everything, that's your clear path. If one of them wins, now it starts to get a little hairy, and we'll see where OU ends up. But we'll see. Oklahoma's going to be in, which is the good news.
I think that it all for me just comes down to what is going to happen this weekend. I know that we all knew they were going to be in, 99% chance.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, if you're an Oklahoma fan, you're looking at this going, all right, like, I'm glued into the SEC title game, and my team isn't playing. Like,
yeah. And here's the thing, too. There's been this idea that, like, they won't play Alabama. Oh, that's not going to happen. I disagree. I think that's totally possible. I mean, Alabama's 9 right now. If they lose to Georgia in a close one, why would Notre Dame jump them? I don't know why that would happen. Now, obviously, if BYU wins, they would jump them, and that would move things around. But if BYU loses and then Alabama loses close, I think there's a very, very real shot that Alabama just sticks at 9 and we're running it back. Alabama's coming to Norman again, which I don't know if anyone really wants that, both in terms of just kind of, we've seen that matchup. I mean, obviously, at the end of the day, it's OU Alabama in a playoff game. We're all going to get fired up for that. But at the same time, like, do you really want to try and have to beat Alabama for the third time in 13 months? That's a tall order, So, but I totally think that's on the table. This notion that, like, that's not going to happen or whatever. Like, I don't agree with that. I think that totally could happen. So we'll see. It's going to be interesting.
Let's talk about this really quick.
Sure.
I think this really boils down to, when you talk about Notre Dame, you talk about Alabama. I personally believe that every Oklahoma fan's preference would be to play Notre Dame in Norman.
Yeah, that's the dream scenario.
But you made a very apt point on one of our phone calls earlier this week. People generally, among all the difficult logic or lack thereof out there in relation to playoff rankings, because the committee is just all over the place, and we are all at mercy of their varying decisions. My dog is like yawning and stuff everywhere. Chill out, dude. The thing that I think people are struggling with that directly applies to Oklahoma, Josh, is yes, there are teams playing this weekend, and Oklahoma needs to be dialed into all that action. The teams that are not playing, their role in this, because that for me is kind of where you go, okay, how exactly does this thing play out for Oklahoma's preferred outcome, which would be Notre Dame and Oklahoma? Neither one are playing, and because Alabama is not just playing Georgia, they're playing Georgia again.
It beat them once in Athens already. Yeah.
It makes it somewhat tricky. It's not as simple as if Alabama loses, they drop a spot. Is basically
right. And that's the thing that people have this kind of old school thinking of: you lose, you fall. And that's because that's how it was forever, right? Our whole childhood and watching the sport our whole lives. But we only have 1 year to go off of. Last year, teams that lost on conference championship weekend did not really get dinged because they don't want to decentivize teams making it to these games. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people lose or are missing the point. Like there's this idea of like, could Georgia fall like below an Oregon or something? It's like, no, I really don't think so. I don't think anyone who's not playing this weekend is going to jump a team that is.
Yeah.
Straight up. I mean, honestly, I could be wrong. If someone gets blown out, maybe that could happen. Because people do that too with like the whole like Miami Notre Dame thing. Like, oh, BYU's 11, Miami's 12. Could Miami then get up to 11 and try to jump Notre Dame because they have the head-to-head? And like that all sounds well and good, but I think why is BYU dropping? They're playing an extra game. Like this is a reward. These conference championship games can really only help you. They really can't hurt you. Which makes sense because you don't want to make it to where teams don't want to be in these games. You want teams to want to be in the conference championship games. And so they're really not going to hurt you. That's just kind of the reality of it. So I think that's something that's important to keep in mind. As you watch these games, you try to do some rankings math. I've been asked, like, could Texas Tech fall down? And it's like, no, they're not going to fall that far. Like they're going to fall a spot or two at most because they're not going to fall below an Oregon who's not playing this. Like they're just not. That's not going to happen. And if it does, I'll eat it. But I'd be shocked if it did. You know what I mean? Like it's just you have to kind of rethink your brain and how this all works.
I think there are two primary storylines in our sport right now. They're flying around everywhere that Oklahoma fans have been very dialed into. Number one is the non-conference stuff with everything that's going on with Texas.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole.
They are still playing Ohio State next year, by the way. So it was all a bluff, basically. But anyway.
Number two is the head-to-head stuff because,
yeah, God.
I don't know that anyone knows whether head-to-head matters or not now, which is awesome. It's such a fun and flirty thing for
our sport. Yeah.
But the thing that I think that we're not talking about enough is that this weekend, and Oklahoma fans should pay very close attention to it, the committee has a chance to set an extremely dangerous precedent. They, this weekend, will determine whether or not conference championships matter or are money grabs. And I promise you, like, it cannot be emphasized enough.
Yeah.
Y'all should talking about it. We're talking about it. If teams go to conference title games this weekend, lose and fall down below teams that, let's just be honest, they're probably better than in the grand scheme of things too, and they're punished for playing an extra game. We are now, in the span of a week, going to be talking about whether or not conference championship games should even be played. And
and
I'll tell you exactly who will,
go ahead. Sorry.
I'll tell you exactly who will fuel that. The teams that are playing this weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
And these games make lots of money. They're not as important as they used to be. It kind of sucks. I like the expanded playoff. I think it's been good for the sport. It's fun. I do think it's helped, but it does suck that Ohio State and Indiana are playing this weekend. It's 1 versus 2, and like we're all going to be watching it. It's a great game. I'm excited to see it. It doesn't feel like it matters that much. I mean, it matters, but it's like whoever loses is just going to be number 2, probably. Like that does kind of suck. Like I acknowledge that, but these games still make a lot of money, and they don't want to get rid of them, and so. That's why it's really important. Nobody's going to get punished that much for losing one of these games. Very mildly. Like I can see Georgia falling below Texas Tech, but that's about it. And that's only because Texas Tech is also playing in one of these games. Like, again, someone who's just sitting at home this weekend is not going to just jump 3 spots because a bunch of teams lost in front of them. Like that's not going to happen. I promise you it's not. So
we'll think.
See. Well, it's going to be interesting. But I mean, the reality, the 2 most likely scenarios are Oklahoma's at home, or they're maybe going to College Station, which is very exciting to think about.
I wouldn't mind it.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind it either. It'd be unbelievable. I've never been to Kyle Field. I've heard good things as far as an atmosphere perspective. It'd be a playoff game. It'd be unbelievable. But there is, again, if both Alabama and BYU wins, and really just even if Alabama loses but BYU wins, that creates the chaos scenario because I just don't know how high BYU is going to go. And that's what makes it hard to predict because if they go anywhere from 8 to 5 or whatever, that obviously affects who OU's playing, and that's where it's like it could be A&M, it could be Oregon, it could be Ole Miss, it could be BYU, it could be Texas Tech, maybe even. Like I don't know, So it'll be It'd be very interesting. If Tech just wins, it's a lot more cut and dry.
Yeah.
Which they probably
So I'll say this. I think Texas Tech is going to win.
Yeah, they
But
probably. I mean, they smoked them the first time.
Yeah. A quick little preview here on the back end. Oklahoma fans, the number one game you need to be dialed into pretty much is the SEC title game. Georgia has lost to Alabama, even though obviously Alabama's ranked lower.
Yeah.
And Georgia just lost their starting center going into this game. So Georgia's already fallen to Alabama, and they're down one of their, leaders on the offense. It now looks a little hairy. Like there is a lot on the line this weekend because you're seeing whether or not Oklahoma's going to host a playoff game, basically. And the team you need to win it's like a little iffy for them.
Right. And the other interesting wrinkle that, I don't know how much stock to put in it, but it's like if Alabama does win and Oklahoma now has a road win over the SEC champ, is that enough to give them a little boost over an A&M? Or, something like that, where they could even maybe get, even though Alabama would jump, because if Alabama wins the SEC, they're going to jump. It's just going to happen. They're going to get probably into the top 4, probably going to buy. But, like, can OU still crawl over someone else to get that home game because they have the feather in the cap of we beat the SEC champ on the road? These are all questions that we just don't. It's impossible to know. Also, because the committee just makes up as they go. So if you're trying to predict an extremely unpredictable group of people. So that puts a flaw in all of it right there. But it'll be interesting. Again, the important thing, Oklahoma's in, which is exciting. And Sunday morning, we'll find out who and where and when. And we'll be here to talk about it. 3 of us will be here Sunday afternoon to talk about it. We'll be on YouTube, obviously, and on the podcast. Hit an instant reaction show, just kind of reacting to where OU lands, where they're going, our initial thoughts on the matchup, and just kind of all of that. So keep an eye out for our immediate thoughts on Sunday. We'll also expect to hear from Brent Venables on Sunday, probably over like a Zoom call or something. So you can hear from him in full on the YouTube channel on Sunday as well with his thoughts on what Oklahoma's draw is in the college football playoff on Sunday. I think that's it. Long show. One of our longer ones in a while, well over an hour. But we had a lot to talk about. Signing day and OU's in the playoff. We got a lot going on right now. A lot going on.
It's like, they landed like 3 new 2027 commits. It might get a few more. And it's like, that's the footnote of the show.
I know. It's crazy. A lot going on right now. It was a very busy week. The calendar is just signing day being right after the regular season finale is kind of crazy. But
oh no, we have to talk more ball with the good folks over there. You know what I mean? Oh,
yeah, exactly. So it's going to be an exciting next couple of weeks. I'm looking forward to Sunday. The anticipation, honestly, is just killing me. I want to know where we're going.
Give me Oklahoma, Notre Dame, and Norman. Just do it.
Yes, that would be amazing. And that's the dream scenario. I don't know how realistic it is. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm hopeful. But one thing is I just want to know. I just want to know where we're going and when the game is and go from there. Which graduation, by the way, for OU is on that same Saturday, which I don't know how that's going to work in Norman. That's going to be just a nightmare.
A lot of traffic.
You got to move something. I don't know what, I don't know how, but something's got to move. I don't know what or how, but something. But yeah, it's going to be quite a time in Norman, home or away, obviously, especially if home though. But we'll see. We'll see on Sunday. Be fun. That's it for now though. Lots of coverage. Collin's been busting it. Tons of sign day coverage on the website and more to come, obviously. And yeah, we'll have more team stuff. Obviously, the playoff chase coming up. We're going to, like I said, have a bunch of selection show stuff on Sunday. OU Hoops, big win on Tuesday. Another big game on Saturday night. So keep an eye out for that. And we'll be back on Sunday to break down the bracket and what Oklahoma's path into a national title will be. Looking forward to it. Sir, try to catch your breath a little bit. Busy next couple of weeks coming up. You got state championship football down there. I got state championship football up here. Selection shows, playoff games. A lot going on.
Shout out the women get a big win last night. Aaliyah Chavez kills it. And I mean, we're doing signing day in the playoff right now. There's just so much going on. You mentioned the men are winning, which is good.
Yes. Yes.
Man, just a lot going on in Norman, and I'm excited to cover it, man. We're going to go to the playoff game wherever it is.
Yep.
Woof.
Could be fun. Looking forward to it. So we'll see you on Sunday with our reaction thoughts on the CFP bracket. Until then, that's it for now. For Collin Kennedy, I'm Josh Callaway. Signing off. See you next time right back here as always on Sooners Illustrated.